Hello internet friends, and welcome to part 2 of this exciting 3-part series where I'm showing you how to create an animated smiley completely from scratch using Adobe Flash. This introduction is, of course, if you missed part 1, you can check it out. We made the basic shell for the thing, and on part 2 we're gonna add the design stuff, the shadows, highlights and all that cool stuff, and on part 3 we're gonna animate it. So let's get started with this. Just basically gonna start, I think, with with the shape of the head. If you remember, in part 1 we made it a symbol, so we double click and go inside the editing mode of the symbol, and yeah, we're basically gonna, where I'm highlighting with a mouse, with a cursor, we are gonna create a highlight. So check this out. We're gonna copy that yellow shape that we have, which is basically layer 1, and I'm gonna lock those two layers, create a new layer, and then Control-Shift-V, which is gonna paste that same circle in place, but in the new layer. It looks like nothing happened, but that's because we pasted it in the same place on the same layer, so it's on top. Okay, so we're gonna copy it again, and check this out. Copy. Okay, so we'll change the color of it, then copy it, and then paste it in place again. I know it sounds a bit complicated, but it's not. So you copy it again, paste it in place, and then you move it, and check this out. So we're gonna nudge it down a little bit with the arrow keys, and we're gonna change the color of it to be red. Now why red? Because we wanna just delete that whole chunk. Okay, so we're just gonna modify a little bit, and look at what we're gonna do there. So just basically deselect the thing. Okay, I'm just tinkering with it a bit. Like I said on last part, it can be hours just moving things 1 centimeter. But anyways, once you have it where you like, you just let go of the selection, and then you can click on it, delete on the keyboard, and because you have those two shapes on the same layer, it's just gonna eat that out. You see what it did? It's I know this part is a bit complicated if you were just starting out, but it's, if you think about how things work in Flash, you see that's the thing that we wanted to do. That little bit that we have there was all those steps, copy pasting that we did, was just to make that, just to kind of have Flash eat that shape that we created. That might have been a bit complicated, but just rewatch it. I think I made it kind of understandable. So okay, so now we're gonna unlock that layer and select the color, and instead of a yellow, we're gonna select that radial what's the name, gradient. That radial gradient. God, I can't talk. So what's happening here is the black color is represented by the rectangle, the little square on the right, and now the yellow color that I just created represented by the square on the left. So just to change those colors, you double click on that little square and then select the color. That's a small thing, but when I started, I was like, how do I change those colors? You just double click and change the color. Make sure you have the circle selected though. So yeah, to create more of these guys, just click basically on the bottom of the rectangle of color, and then again, to change the color of the squares, just double click on them and create new colors. And you can go crazy, I mean, with all the different colors like I'm going here. I'm just trying to add a small highlight there, and you can even move the small squares to make, for example, if you want a highlight to be more dominant, you move it to the right and it becomes a more dominant color. But anyways, another way we can transform this is if we hold the key on the free transform tool, we get the gradient transform tool, and we can move that guy, which is like the free transform tool but for gradients. So it's pretty cool. We can move it. As you can see, we can scale it. And what I'm trying to do here is kind of have that smooth going on the right part of the circle. As you can see, have like a fading kind of effect, and I'm trying to have like a darker, as you can see, the darker yellow on the right, and then the highlight on the left part, which is where I put the strong, you can call it the strong highlight. So there I'm moving that rectangle, and you can see the effect. If you have the circle selected, you can see that it sort of smooths the white highlight I made, and makes it a little bit, you know, less strong. And that's fine, because in these effects, at least the look I'm going for is just like a smooth, shiny thing. And that way, what I'm doing, moving these squares on the color rectangle, is just to kind of smooth the colors out and still make it look cartoony. I mean, we're not making a realistic thing here, but you know what I mean. It's a style. So just double click and go outside of the symbol, and I think we're gonna go to the eyes now. What are we gonna do with the eyes? Let's see, just double click on them first, and then they're selectable. We're gonna add a new layer, and I think we, let me be sure. Yeah, we copy and paste. It's a lot of copying things and pasting them on a new layer. I'm kind of realizing that now. But anyways, what we're gonna do here, it's a pretty cool effect. We're basically gonna paste that same shape on a layer down, put a color that's lighter, and kind of nudge them down a little bit with the arrow keys, and you can slightly see what effect it makes. It's a really kind of like a small outline just at the bottom of the eyes, and it looks good. I think it's a really simple touch, but it adds kind of like to the character. Well, now it's a character. It was a thing first. But anyways, what are we gonna do here? Okay, so we double click on the boca, which is the mouth, if you remember from part 1, and we're gonna create some shadows for the teeth. Okay, so let's click on the teeth. This is interesting, and we're gonna create a symbol of the teeth. So let's call it dientes, which is how you call teeth in Spanish. And okay, let's organize the layers, call that teeth, and then on the bottom part, what can we call that? It's a bottom black part. Let me drink some water real quick. Oh, okay, this is interesting. We're creating another gradient for the black sort of shape part of the mouth, but this is a really even a smoother gradient, because it's, as you can see, from a really dark gray to a black. You see, so it's a really smooth transition. You can barely see it, and it's a linear gradient, which instead of being a circle, it's like a line. You know, it goes from left to right, and at least I think it's a. Oh no, I'm sorry. Excuse me about that. It is a radial gradient. I don't know what I was looking at. So same thing with it with the circle, but with less colors, only 2 colors, and yeah, it's just kind of like to give it more depth, I guess, to make it look cooler, I guess, in my mind. But yeah, just a small touch. So now we're gonna double click on the dientes, which is a teeth symbol. God, and as you can see there on the top left, you can see the how it is set up. We have the teeth, which are a symbol inside the mouth, which is a symbol that is on the scene 1, which is the main timeline. Okay, so that should make sense. And we're gonna make another radial gradient. Well, this should be the radial gradient part tutorial. But no, okay, this is interesting what we're doing here. We are, as you can see, I moved the rectangle, the little square on the gradient that has white all the way to the right. So on the gradient, on the part of the teeth, you can see it's all white, and just on the corners where it's ending, it starts to get gray just a little bit, so it creates a shadow, you see, and it's I think it's pretty cool, because you see almost all white, and then when it starts to fade out, you start to see the gray area, kind of a shadow there, and I think that's a pretty neat effect for the teeth. So we're gonna add 2 more layers here to the teeth. We're gonna add more shadows there. I think it's one of my favorite parts of the teeth of this guy. So what we did there was copy and paste that same shape again, the same copy paste shape, and we're just gonna make it a green so we can distinguish it. Okay, so we have 2 shapes, and we're gonna call that mascara, which is mask, because we are creating a mask. Okay, and for now I just put that invisible for now. And what I'm gonna do on the middle layer, you can always see if you get lost on the timeline, you see what layer I'm working on at the moment. So I'm working on layer 2, which is the middle layer, and I just created a black rectangle, and I just locked that layer 1 just so I don't accidentally select the teeth. And what I'm doing here is basically what we did on part 1 to create the actual shape of the teeth. And I'm just, creating some points here and there, making basically a shadow for the teeth to give them more depth with the mouth. And what I have there on the setup is the top layer that says mascara is the mask that's gonna mask the shadow so that it's only visible on the shape of the teeth. See, it makes sense. So that's why the layer of the mascara, which is now invisible at the moment, it is the same shape of the teeth. You see, I turn it into I think it was a green or a red color. Yeah, that bright color. So when I make it a mask for real, it's basically gonna make what's underneath it just show up on the shape of the mask. It makes sense, right? Yeah, it makes sense. So, yeah, that was my explanation. I think it made sense. So what I'm doing here, it's a small rectangle, and I'm just gonna join those 2 points, and I'm gonna end up with this small shape that is basically, I'm gonna do that again. So you just grab that point, okay, and you drag it up, and you grab that point and you drag it up there, and you get that little shape there, and you can move it basically to create the shadow of the 2 pieces of teeth that the Smiley has. So it creates a shadow from the top to the bottom teeth. Okay, so again, we don't have to worry to keep the shape inside the teeth. As you can see, it's obviously coming out, but with the mask that we're gonna create in a second, that's not gonna be an issue. So just again, yeah, these tutorials could be like half the length, but I just continue moving stuff around. So we have that, and we're just gonna create a symbol of it just to keep it organized in one small package. We're gonna call it shadow, or sombra in Spanish. And what we can do, well, we're not gonna just make it a symbol for that. I'm sorry, we're gonna select properties, color effects, alpha, and then bring it down so we have a transparency, obviously on the shadows, because we don't have that. It's just gonna be black and it's gonna look weird. So I'm just gonna move that up there so you can see the filters. We're gonna add a blur just to blur out the shadow so it looks more shadowy. And yeah, that has to be a movie clip. If you want to add the color effects of the transparency and the filters of the blur, it has to be a movie clip. That's why I created it. So just right click on the layer that has mask, click mask, and it's done. That's, if you never created a mask before, that's basically how you do it. Just right click on a layer, select mask, and you have a mask. And okay, so I have a small issue there. I just have to make sure that the shadow is taking all of the part of the teeth, and if I double click and go outside of my symbols, I get that, what you're seeing right now. So there you can kind of see what I was trying to articulate a few seconds ago. You see the sort of how that creates more depth to the mouth. I think it does. I'm gonna make it slightly darker because it's not that noticeable. What I'm doing there is, again, modifying the first grading that I added for the teeth, which was, remember to make that center part white and then go and make it darker. I'm just gonna make that smaller so that both effects combine, both that gradient and the shadow that I just added, so that sort of makes 2 effects, and I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, I think it does. It works. It could be better, but it works. You know what I mean? Yeah. So what we're gonna do here now is again go inside the mouth, and I'm just tinkering with stuff again. Like I said, just remember that hierarchy, is that a word? You know that we're inside the teeth that are inside the mouth that is on the main timeline. So we have a symbol inside a symbol, okay? Symbolception, or no, non-ception jokes. So, okay. I'm gonna add another layer here, and you just see, oh, okay, I remember. So we're gonna add a new layer here and just again copy and paste the same shape, same process, but we are going to add kind of like a small outline on the lower part of the teeth. And as you can see, you know, we copy pasted, but I can just, if I have all the other layers locked, I can select those parts and delete them because all the other layers are locked. You see? So that's kind of an easy, quick way of cheating an outline on that part of the mouth. I'm sorry, the teeth. And what we have there, again, it's just kind of like, gives it kind of a metallic effect, or I don't know how even to call it. I just like how it looks, you know? And it kind of takes away some of the depth, I think, but just on the aesthetic of the design, I think it looks good. Because we made that back part of the mouth be not black, it has that gray gradient. With that outline, I don't know, it brings out the gray. Okay, so I'm selecting the gradient of the mouth, and we are going to do, let's see here. Okay, yeah, just basically saying bulk at the back of the mouth, just kind of organizing inside my mouth layer the things that are in there, okay? And I'm just duplicating the same thing I did with the teeth, but with the shape of the back of the mouth. I'm gonna, copy it and just drag it down so I create another outline there. And again, it's the same process. It's basically copying a shape, inserting a new layer, putting that layer on the bottom, pasting that same shape, and then moving it down with the directional arrows, and then changing the color to make it a lighter color. If you want to shadow, make it a dark color. If you want to highlight this part, it makes sense to make it a shadow. I hope I made it a shadow. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's a shadow. But as you can see here, what I did was create that twice. So I'm gonna have two outlines, and okay, and the second outline is gonna have a gradient. So it makes sense, you see? And this is it's one of the effects I like the most, actually, because we have a radial gradient, and what we're gonna have is basically three colors, but they're gonna be the same. But how does that work, you may ask yourself? Well, what we're going to do is the following. We're going to make both the colors that are on the corners of the rectangles, just click on them, and then on the A there, which is the alpha, bring it down to 0. So we basically have a color that is, we can double click and put it there if that doesn't work. Just bring the alpha down to 0, and we have a color that is on the center that's kind of fading out to the edges. Okay, so that makes kind of like a cool effect, I think. And again, we can modify it with the gradient transform tool if we want. But yeah, that's what happens. That's kind of like to create a lip for it, kind of, it creates a nice little effect, I think. So basically, just to recap that real quick, we have the shape of the mouth, then at the bottom we have a shape that is a bit lighter. I'm just moving that because I can, I think. I don't know what I'm doing. But basically, to recap the mouth, we have a duplicate of the same shape of the mouth to create a lighter shade, and then we have another duplicate to create that sort of shape of the lip that has the linear gradient. Hope that made sense. Yeah, this has been a bit more complicated than usual. Not on what I'm doing. I mean, what I'm doing is pretty simple, but the way I'm explaining things might be because I'm sick. I don't know. What do you guys think? But yeah. So let's see here. We're gonna add. Okay, so again, we're gonna copy and duplicate again a new shape of the mouth and a new layer at the bottom, but we're gonna do the opposite in the sense that we're now, instead of putting darker yellow colors, we're duplicating the same exact thing, but instead using lighter yellow colors to create a highlight. So same process, the sides are with alpha'd out, so they're transparent, and the middle part has that yellow thing. So you can see there it sort of has a lip, or I don't know if I should say it's a lip. It's yeah, it's a lip. Let's say it's a lip. And yeah, it works. So we're almost done with this. I think it's looking pretty good. If you compare it to how it started, it was just like a, basic shell of shapes that was standing there. Now it's starting to get more creepy but cooler. So I just created a new layer called shadow and locked all the other layers. And this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna create a rectangle and go to our fill color and select, let's see, what we're gonna do. It's gonna be an orange for now. Well, that kind of looks like David Bowie. Anyway, we're going to modify this rectangle to make a shadow, an interesting shadow shape. Okay, so as you can see there, I just click on the corner and then drag it up, and I converted that rectangle to a triangle. Okay, 3 points, because okay, I'm shaping that thing up and I'm creating that shape. And you can see it's not above the eyes, because if you see the layers on top, we have ojos, which are eyes, boca, mouth, shadow, which is sombra, which is the layer I'm working at, and then the basic shape of the head is the bottom layer. So let's create a symbol for that. And what we're going to do with this symbol as we go inside is, of course, make it a linear gradient and select that same orange we had, but apply a neat trick where we have the same color but transparent. So we're going to modify that with the shape gradient transform tool, and we get that cool look. That's, it might be unnecessary, that shape they have there. But again, it just adds another thing that we're changing, and we add a blur effect there to make it a little bit more less noticeable, I guess. And yeah, guys, that's basically it. Hope you liked it. I know it was a bit more confusing than usual. Sorry about that. Hope you click the like button if you liked it, and subscribe and watch the next part, which is gonna be animation. So let's animate.